So here's a big question for you. How does a tradition that's been around for 2,500 years survive a modern-day media firestorm? It really gets to the heart of how ancient wisdom can stay relevant in our world. Okay, let's dive into this incredible story of crisis, philosophy, and what turned out to be a quiet revolution.
Our story kicks off in 2015 with what the media called the Zuchi incident. A really prominent Buddhist organization got hit with this huge media frenzy over its development plans and, its financial dealings. And the backlash was intense. Public trust just plummeted, and suddenly the integrity of Taiwanese Buddhism as a whole was being called into question. Things got so bad that academics actually started calling it a modern Dharma crisis. Now, you've got to understand, that is a heavy, heavy term. Historically, a Dharma crisis was something like a massive persecution that threatened the very survival of the religion. So for scholars to use that term for a 21st century financial scandal, well, that just shows you how serious the damage really was. But right in the middle of all this chaos, one of the most respected figures in modern Buddhism, Master Hsing Yun, did something pretty remarkable. He published a series of articles that eventually became a book called The Poor Monk Has Something to Say. And he didn't just play defense or try to justify things. He actually used the crisis as a launchpad to completely rethink and explain two fundamental pillars of the faith: its relationship with money and its rules for daily life. So how do you even begin to tackle a crisis of trust like that? Well, the first step was to go right to the root of the problem: money. And to rebuild that public confidence, Master Hsing Yun put forward this radical, almost paradoxical philosophy about wealth, starting with the very idea of what it even means to be a poor monk. The core of his whole philosophy is this fascinating paradox. He argued that a leader must be personally poor, live a simple, frugal life, and completely renounce any personal wealth. But, and here's the twist, this personal poverty is precisely what allows the organization to become rich in its mission, to be able to effectively manage huge sums of money for things like education, charity, and the public good. This really boils down to this incredible concept of having by not wanting. What Master Hsing Yun was saying is that by personally wanting nothing, a leader earns something far more valuable: trust. They earn the legitimacy to build everything. Think about it. The public is way more willing to support an organization when they know for a fact that its leader has zero personal financial stake in it. It's a really powerful vision for selfless leadership. Okay, so if the leader is personally poor, how does that idea scale up to the institution itself? You might think the temple would be rich, right? But the answer is just as counterintuitive. This personal philosophy translates into a really unique organizational strategy: keep the temple poor. This economic model basically flips traditional thinking completely on its head. Instead of hoarding wealth in the temple's bank account, the goal is to store wealth with the devotees. The focus shifts to small, sustainable donations from tons of people. Why? Because that builds a much stronger, more engaged community. And crucially, the temple itself is kept poor because it's constantly spending whatever money it receives on its mission. So here's the really brilliant part. This poverty actually becomes the engine for growth. Money comes in from the community, and boom, it's immediately channeled out into these huge, ambitious public projects. We're talking universities, mobile libraries, even hospitals. This empties the temple's bank account, which in turn creates this sense of urgency and shared purpose that motivates everyone to keep working, keep innovating, and keep giving. It's a perpetual motion machine for good deeds. Now, solving the financial trust issue was a huge step, but it was only half the battle. The other part of the response was, if you can believe it, even more ambitious: updating the very rules that guide a Buddhist's daily life to make sense for the 21st century. What's so fascinating here is that changing the rules isn't some radical break from tradition, it is the tradition. I mean, from the original precepts to the big schisms that happened over rigid rules, to the new pure rules that were created when Buddhism arrived in China, the faith has always survived by adapting its guidelines to new times and new places. Master Hsing Yun argued that just like a country has to amend its constitution over time, so too must a religion adapt its rules. A precept like not touching gold or silver might have been practical 2,500 years ago, but it's just impossible in a modern economy. He said that to insist on static, unchanging rules is to actually violate a core Buddhist teaching, the law of impermanence. Everything changes. So what did these new rules actually look like? Well, instead of these ancient, kind of abstract prohibitions, he proposed a really simple, practical framework for modern life. 10 things you should do and 10 things you shouldn't.
And just take a look at these 10 to-dos. They're not about some esoteric rituals. They are about living a better life, right here, right now. Eat breakfast properly. Be willing to praise others. Be punctual and trustworthy. This is positive, actionable advice on how to be a better employee, a better family member, and just a better citizen. And the 10 don'ts, well, they act like modern ethical guardrails. Don't obsess over brand names, takes a direct shot at consumerism. Don't use bureaucratic language is all about promoting clear, humane communication. Together, they create a clear, simple moral compass for navigating all the complexities of our modern society. And this right here is probably the most important part of all. These new precepts were intentionally designed to be universal. They're basically a code of conduct for anyone, whether you're a Buddhist or not, who just wants to live with a bit more integrity, compassion, and purpose. It's all about taking that wisdom out of the monastery and putting it directly into our daily lives. So when you put these two huge revolutions together, the financial one and the ethical one, what you end up with is a really powerful blueprint for how an ancient institution can not only survive a modern crisis, but actually come out of it stronger. You see, this model is built on transparency, practicality, and a deep, deep commitment to the public good. It shows that you can innovate and adapt to the times without betraying your core values. In fact, it kind of suggests that innovating is the only way you can preserve those core values for the future. And that leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to think about. This whole story provides one powerful answer. It's a mix of personal humility, institutional energy, and practical everyday ethics. And it suggests that maybe the path forward for any tradition isn't about clinging rigidly to the past, but about having the wisdom and the courage to translate its timeless soul into the language of today.